This sounds to me like a Prime Minister and a Chancellor who not so long ago were saying, I'm sorry, we've got to balance the books, no tax cuts yet. They are now assailed, not only by people around the country saying you're supposed to be the Tory party, the party of low tax, but also, of course, by his own backbenchers who say, if you don't do what we're supposed to do and cut tax and encourage the economy, we're going to be finished at the next election. So it seems to me as if both Sunak and Hunt are now saying, oh, well, yes, we might make some tax cuts pretty soon. But would you expect them in the autumn statement, Mark?
Yes, I think something probably fairly modest, Kevin. And you're right in your analysis. I think there's both economic pressure and political pressure. What a difference a couple of months make, hey? It was only 2 months ago that Jeremy Hunt said tax cuts were virtually impossible. And now Rishi Sunak announces today that the time for tax cuts has arrived. Look, I think it's going to be a pretty modest reduction from what you've just pointed out, that it's a 70-year high in terms of the taxman's take of national income, the highest level since Clement Attlee's post-war socialist government. So we might come off the absolute peak, but I'm not expecting anything particularly explosive here. And, you know, debt and deficits remain a big problem. No government of any political stripe has balanced the books in a given budget since 2001. So we've been piling on the debt. Servicing that debt interest has become more expensive as interest rates have returned to something approaching normal. So there's limited room for manoeuvre here. I hope they do reduce taxes. I think there will be some modest reductions. But really, I will actually echo what Rishi Sunak said. If you want to get taxes down, you've got to get spending down. And this government has shown great reluctance and no particular imagination in actually cutting spending.
I mean, Rishi Sunak is apparently claiming a big win on being able to potentially, trim taxes here and there because he's managed to halve inflation. Now, I don't really think that that's much of anything that he's done. I kind of think that that's happened to him and the country. How much is that true? How much is government intervention or Bank of England intervention halved this inflation? And how much is it likely to be re-inflamed by another energy crisis this winter with what's going on in the Middle East as well as the Ukraine?
Yeah, look, Alex, I don't claim to be an economic forecaster. I think it's very difficult to know what will happen next. I think you can argue that the Bank of England belatedly raising interest rates, they should have done this a good couple of years ago, has dampened inflation. But you're right to imply that Rishi Sunak has basically borne witness to this. He hasn't been the architect of inflation coming down. It's just been on his watch. And it's still problematic, and we shouldn't take for granted that it will remain at these levels. But let's hope we've got over that bump. Where I disagree with the Prime Minister is I don't think that I think the government should be able to do more than one thing at a time. So I don't think you need to get inflation down before you can cut taxes. I don't see those as being the two that are most clearly linked together. It's spending and tax, which are the two most crucially linked together. We now have a welfare bill of what about £340 billion? 340 billion. If you can't get that down and under control, then we'll probably see some fiddling on Wednesday from the Chancellor. I don't know, perhaps a penny or two's cut of national insurance, that sort of thing. There might be a bit of relief for businesses in allowing what's called full expensing. That's to say that you can write off some investment against taxes. But it's going to be fiddling at the edges. I mean, Jeremy Hunt said he wants to cut taxes to get the economy fizzing. I mean, I'd settle just to see the economy twitching, really. I mean, growth has been so poor that even a twitch here or there would actually be a step forward.
A sign of life, at least.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rishi Sunak's not a man who shows many signs of growth himself.
He's not a twitcher, no. Mark, every time I listen to you, I think, I wish this guy was our Chancellor of the Exchequer. But you're not, sadly. But if you were, what would you be doing in your autumn statement to kickstart the economy, to improve the state of the country?
Well, I think there's three things you've got to do. I've mentioned spending, and I think there does need to be, I mean, it's too late between now and Wednesday, but there needs to be a much more comprehensive review of spending. Our welfare spending's got to be on helping the poorest for hopefully a limited period of time. We can't have welfare for virtually everybody in Britain. You've really got to crack down on that bill. If you get spending under control, then I'd go for some pretty big tax cuts. I mean, I want to see income tax down, national insurance down. I think we've got some taxes which are so high, they're not even maximising the amount of revenue they bring in. I think you can cut corporation tax for free, because if it drops, businesses will come here, invest more, stop fleeing to the Republic of Ireland. It could easily pay for itself. And then the third plank, and I'm worried we're not going to hear anything really meaningful on this area from Jeremy Hunt, is you've got to bring about some supply side reform, deregulation, get rid of some red tape. That's often very politically controversial, you know, to loosen up planning laws, or perhaps get rid of some red tape that afflicts financial services, for example. It's often controversial, but it comes free. So I think they should be willing to take that political risk, start incinerating some red tape. We're always told about a bonfire of red tape, but rarely do we even see a smouldering of red tape. I'd like to see at least some gentle smouldering, but I'm not even optimistic on that score. So those are the three things you've got to put together. A serious effort to get spending down by a good number of tens of billions. And I think you've got to look at middle class welfare for that, end the pensions triple lock, for example. Secondly, get taxes down meaningfully, then the economy won't merely twitch, it will fizz. But thirdly, get the dead hand of the state off businesses and businessmen and women up and down the country. It's a killer for entrepreneurialism. And if you actually start to cut back on regulation and regulators, then the fizz will come. And you can do that for not a single penny, just for a bit of political will.